I'm excited as we continue our relationship series, Unhinged, that we've been in, talking about just the different dynamics in relationships. And anybody loving the series so far? Anybody? And I love the kind of shift that we've taken to where it's focused on all sorts of relationships, not just dating relationships, not just marriage, not just what it looks like to have a family, but what's my relationship with my parents? What's my relationship with my coworkers? What's my relationship like with my friends? All of it matters. And so more than anything, what we've wanted to do over the last few weeks is just give you some practical tools that are founded from the Bible, really, to help us have healthy relationships in all areas of our life. And so every year, what we like to do is we like to have a Q&A panel where we get to hear from some people in our very own community. And so I'm super excited to continue it because I don't know about you, but if I'm honest, there have been relationships in my life, there are still some relationships in my life that feel a little unhinged. And so I'm excited to learn from these people that are going to share with us this morning because, Tess and I could have gotten up here and we could have shared our immense experience of all the years that we've been married. We could have shared all the wisdom that we've gained from the 3 years that we've been married with you guys, because we knew that would have been super helpful. I'm kidding. But I'm excited. Can we welcome the people who are going to be speaking with us this morning as the team comes to pull out some chairs for us? Can we welcome one of our elders, Rob Olszewski? Can we welcome Rob? And Thomas and Laura Mendez. And then Erica Taylor. Look at that jacket, Erica. Okay. Yeah, I think this is good. And here, yeah. Hey, watch that corner. That corner will get you. That corner's got me before. So, hey, I want to welcome everybody joining us online, Liberty Live. Can we welcome them one more time this morning? And I'm really excited for this conversation. Honestly, it's kind of hard for us sometimes because we're trying to always make sure that the conversation feels fresh, that you're hearing from different people in our community, because we have so many people in our community who could have been up here. And but this it's interesting because each of them, it kind of happened. We were hanging out, and it's like, oh my gosh, light bulb goes off. So it was great. But this is Laura and Thomas. Thomas, you guys probably know because he beats those drums back there. And but his wife serves on our prayer team. And this is Rob Olszewski, one of our elders here in downtown Brooklyn. And this is Erica Taylor. Erica and Damien are a huge part of our team, and I love their family. Their son Rafferty is like my best friend. And their daughter Evie is my best friend. She just doesn't know it. So if you see me talking to a little girl named Evie and she's not really responding, that's just our dynamic, but we're good, okay? And but one of the things that I think I would love to just kind of start with is, for those of you that have been around our community for a little bit, you know my story, my journey when it comes to all sorts of relationships in my life. One of the things that I've talked about is how my relationship with my dad has affected other relationships in my life, both past and both relationships that I'm trying to develop and build now. And so what I would love, if you guys wouldn't mind, just kind of speaking to how have previous relationships affected how you guys pursue relationships and how you develop relationships in the future. And it's not just dating, it's not just marriage, but I think, my relationship with my dad affected even just friendships that I had, mentors that I had in my life. It affected those dynamics as well. And so I'll just open it. Well, Erica has a mic, so I'll let Erica speak to it. Yeah.
So I would say my relationships have definitely evolved. They look different now than they did in my 20s. In my 20s, I had a lot more free time. I could invest in a lot of different people. But now that I'm in my 30s and I have 2 kids and a husband and I'm busy, now I don't have as many friends. I have fewer friends, but they're definitely with a deeper connection. They're friends that sharpen me and we can grow together in Christ, and that's so important.
I think for me, from a negative aspect, prior to really like developing a relationship with Jesus, my previous relationships definitely informed the limit to which I could open up and expectations that I would have with ongoing relationships. So similarly with JR, I think the way that I grew up in my relationship with my own dad, that always sort of created this need to kind of protect yourself and don't reveal too much of who you are, what you really want. And it's always like, oh, okay, cool, like I guess I have to be around people because I'm a human being and that helps. But like, I'm only gonna give you so much, or I'm gonna posture a little bit and sort of even put up a facade because I'm not letting you go somewhere where someone else did and they hurt me.
I was being a gentleman and giving my wife the opportunity to speak before me. What a husband's supposed to do. Just kidding. Yeah, I think, my understanding of a relationship was twisted. I only thought that it, had to deal with, one specific person, and I tended to forget about my friends and put them on like the back burner. And I would say one of the things that God has now brought to my attention is that clearly my relationship with him and my wife come first, my son. But friends are important because you need them in your life. You need somebody to share time with. You need to be actually able to dedicate time with them. And that was one thing that I wasn't capable of doing. And so that's just a little something I wanted to share. But
well, you kind of segue perfectly because you talked about how your relationship with God and then your relationship with your wife. Those two things kind of come first. And so, at what point for all of you guys? At what point did your faith start to change the way that you look at relationships? Because if I speak for myself, it wasn't until I started to really follow Jesus and understand what that means that my relationship with my dad and trying to reconcile that was even important. Up until that point, I was like, I don't care. I don't need you in my life. I've been fine in my life without you. And so there was no added value or significance to that relationship until I started to follow Jesus. And so I would love to hear from you guys, at what point did faith start to kind of change how you see relationships, the importance of them, and even the importance of maybe reconciling broken relationships that you may have had in the past?
I think for me, it wasn't until I encountered Jesus that you realized, oh, like I have this sort of part of my heart that could like never really be filled by anything else. And there was this realization of like, oh, until this point, I was always trying to fill all these little places with either like work, which definitely wasn't working out for me in my 20s. And then, if that wasn't working out, then there was like an added emphasis on friendships. But you're like looking to friendships to fulfill like this part of your heart that's just never going to be fully fulfilled. But the ironic thing is you don't yet have Jesus, so you don't have the freedom and the courage to pursue vulnerability. So the very thing you need, you won't open up to. Wow. So it wasn't until I started to realize, oh my God, Jesus can kind of fill all of these other needs. It made me more courageous to step out. It was like an embarrassment of riches because you're more comfortable with stepping out, and then all of a sudden everything that you actually wanted, you're getting now because you can go deeper with the people around you. And I know for me personally, like I grew up in like a toxic sort of like Strong Island, nothing against Long Island, but like very like fratty culture where it was just like, okay, we're friends, but like you're only going to a certain level. So it was like toxic. And honestly, I don't know if they're here, but like one of the first amazing encounters that I had that was like really moving was I started to go to church and I met the Hellcamps, who are elders here. And I'll never forget, we were at Yankee Stadium, it was my birthday, and they got me like a How I Met Your Mother like DVD set and like all these different things. And I literally short-circuited and I didn't understand why these people were so generous, like why they always wanted to be around me, why they were always so encouraging. And it literally like, it was a paradigm shift for me. But the only reason that I can even maybe go that deep was because first and foremost, like my faith and my connection to Jesus.
I just want to add to that. again, coming into my 30s, and as my faith continued to grow, I really started to crave friendships that I knew that they would rebuke me and that they would challenge me and that they would call me out. I didn't want a surface level friendship anymore. I wanted a really deep connection, like I mentioned. And again, fewer friends, but those friends are just, they come alongside me. And I think that, we need that.
I think for us, where faith really played a big role is not allowing like the world to define what your relationship should be. So we have a stepchild. So Thomas had a son before we were married, and I think there's so much negative connotation in the world to what it is to be a stepmother. Like all the Disney movies, it's negative, right? Like, and so many people in the world see it as something that you have to have strife. You can't get along. It'll never work. It'll always be a burden on your shoulder. And when you give it to God and you say, God, what do you say about this relationship? What's your purpose in this relationship? Then it redefines, and you don't live by what the world says. If we lived our relationship, raising a stepchild, the way the world says, we would never get along. We have a wonderful relationship with Caleb's mom, and I'm only through God is that possible, that he's able to say, like, no, this is my story for you. This is my truth for you. So that's where you need to I think we let God in and say, okay, God, what can you do with this? Because it's nothing of my own, strength. So.
No, that's good. And man, you guys are just like perfect. Like you guys are, this is amazing. But, I think what's so cool is I think that, those of you who maybe have seen this couple around and you see them with Caleb, you might not have known that they have a blended family, that Caleb isn't Laura's son. And, but there's also this beautiful aspect to it of where I think when people don't realize that, it shows how much you treat him like he's your own. So I think there's something beautiful about that. But obviously you guys are, both still fairly young, and now you have a blended family. How has that maybe given you guys a different perspective on relationships, on marriage, on family? Because, maybe that wasn't your, thought of what was going to happen when, you were like, oh, I'm going to get married and I'm already going to have a kid. I'm sure that's probably not the first thing you were thinking about. So how has that changed your perspective at all when it comes to family and marriage and all of those things?
Yeah, so definitely true. When I think when I was 21, if you would have told me 3 years later I'd be, married with a stepchild, I probably would have laughed. But my life truly, honestly, is better than I could have ever imagined for myself. That's the truth. Learning to love a child that is not biologically yours, sorry, y'all, it has showed me so much about God's unconditional love.
Wow.
All right, God, cool. It's taught me so much about God's unconditional love for us. My husband said this to me. I had never heard it before, and it's true. Biology is a very small part of what makes someone a parent. And he said that to me from the day that we met, and I have made that my truth, and it is true. As far as dating, I think the biggest advice that I can give you from having a blended family is that sometimes God's perfect will is not going to at all look the way you think it will look. Yeah. And I think you cut yourself short by having a specific vision of how you think your life will be. That you actually don't give God the opportunity to do what he wants to do in your life. I had no concept I'd ever be a stepmom. I never thought I could do it. But by doing it and loving Caleb, I am a better version of myself. I don't even want to think where I would be had I not stepped into that role. So I just think, it's not always going to look the way we think it would look. I thank God that I have a creator who knows the end of the story, right? I heard this podcast once that was about God giving us gifts that are strangely wrapped, and I think that's so good. Like sometimes it's a gift, and it's not in the wrapping that we thought it would be, or it doesn't appear the way we thought it would be, and so we kind of turn our nose up to God and say, oh, I don't want this, when really it's God's perfect plan for our lives. So I think with dating, it's not that you can't have standards. You should have standards who you date, but keep an open mind that God might have a different plan for you than you maybe think, and it's going to be better than you could have ever imagined. So just, when it comes to dating and having a family, having friends, just lay your plans before God and say, God, what do you have for me? What do you see my life to look like? our primary goal in relationships should not be to like be comfortable, like in like that's not going to cause any type of growth. So when I had a vision of my life to say, well, I'll get married, I'll have my children, I had this comfy version of my life. I would never have grown to the capacity I have had I had this like comfy, you know. God puts relationships for us to grow and to mature. And I thought I was cool until I coexisted with another human. And then you realize you're selfish, and you try to raise a child that's not yours. You're like, I'm selfish. I'm a selfish person, so I'm becoming like Christ. That would not be possible if I was just comfortable, everything's good, so, yeah, I think that's what.
So just briefly, I wanted to share, having a blended family definitely influences your different relationships in your life. I want to share a personal story that happened to me, and this was actually very recently. Is that my phone that's causing that? I don't know. Okay, sorry. I was at a party, and I was having a conversation with somebody, and I'll keep his name out of it. It's not here, but it doesn't matter. And we were talking about the times that you give our wives flowers, right? And he mentioned Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, their anniversary, and her birthday. And he said he doesn't like giving flowers on random occasions because he wants those to be special. And I understood that, but I didn't agree. And so I told him, I buy my wife flowers randomly on those holidays and just because, right? And he said, no, you should never do that. And then he mentioned, it was weird. It was weird, but he said, for you, it should be really 3 holidays that you would give your wife flowers. And I stood there for a second, not realizing what he was saying. And he said, well, because, Mother's Day, because she's not a mom yet. And I almost flipped him. Let's keep it Brooklyn. And I was really angered by it, but I kept my emotions to myself. I knew where we were. I didn't snap back at him. And I just, I politely said, but with an attitude, let's be real. I politely said, but I told him, I said, listen, I buy my wife flowers when I want to buy her flowers, and I buy her flowers on Mother's Day because, and this is what Laura was saying before, I said, biology is one of the least things that makes you a mom, right? And because it makes you a mother. But a mom is somebody who nurtures. And a mom is somebody who raises a child. A mom is somebody who cares for the child, right? And that's what Laura has done with Caleb. And so just a brief look back at my notes because I want to wrap this up. So for me personally, that's not a person whom I would necessarily, take information from in regards to marriage and or raising a family in the future. Because he doesn't see the two as we have them both. He only sees that we have the marriage, but we don't have the family aspect, right? And so yes, I believe, having a blended family influences how you see relationships around you. But here's what I wanted to share with you guys when I was going over and studying for this. This is what God had really put in my heart. Yes, it does influence having the relationships around you, but I've also come to terms with understanding that it influences how people see our relationship, right? And that's the truth. And so due to that, I have to be very protective of who I allow into our circle, who I allow into my family's circle, because not everybody has that same agenda that you have or that Christ has for you, right?
That's
so,
good.
Yeah.
That's good. I think
You're right.
we were, we were hanging out with you guys, and I just kind of asked, obviously you guys have a relationship with Caleb's mom, which I think is amazing that you both do.
Yeah.
But if you would take like 1 minute to just speak to that journey a little bit, and how has that been? Because I would imagine that probably was a challenge at first. And, again, just you probably not thinking that you would ever have to think about any of this. And so if you would take a minute just to speak to that dynamic because that's family as well, So Could you speak to that for a little bit?
You want to go first, or should I?
It doesn't matter. Okay, I'll go. Yeah, like, and only, like, I want to stress the fact that this relationship is not something that was overnight, like, oh, just the peace of God, everything's cool. Like, it was something that we literally I cried about. I wrestled with God about, who am I? Am I valuable outside of being a biological mother? Like, these were things that I cried out to God, who am I? Like, what do you have for me? What is your truth for me, right? And his mother was not receiving at first, so it was something that I had to really walk through and say, God, like, no matter what anybody says, you know, what is your best for me? And it's not something that happened overnight. We only by God's grace can stand here and say 3 years later, you know, the three of us take Caleb to the park together and do things together as a family. And it was so hard for so long. And if there's anyone going through something similar, like, keep at it. And again, give it to God, because we could have just said, you know, we're a step family. This is just going to be how it is. It's just going to be strife, and we're going to have to live like that. But we don't have to live like that, because God has given us freedom and peace. And so, but it was tough. That's all I'm going to say.
I wrote something down yesterday. The best way I could describe this, how challenging it was in the beginning when Laura and I first started talking and dating, and she knew about it, was imagine, and try to put yourself in this this picture. Imagine walking into a room where there's money being blown all around you, right? Like one of those tornado rooms, right? You know what I'm talking about? That's a place that everyone wants to be in, right? Yeah. Come on, don't lie. You know you want it. Now imagine, in the same room is the mother or the father of your child, and that money is now all the pieces that make up your kid. Their emotions, their well-being, their thoughts, their mind, their heart, their soul. And you guys are both trying to catch everything in that room. That's how it felt for me. Because I was afraid to be the one that punished him or be the one that disciplined him, because I had fear that he would want to be with her and not with me.
Wow.
It was an overwhelming fear that I had to know, oh man, one day this kid's gonna have to choose. That's how I felt. And God really straightened me out on this one, and it took a long time, but it has nothing to do with who he chooses. That's not my concern in the moment. My concern is that my child grows up and knows Christ, loves Christ, fears Christ, serves in church, and does the best that he can do with all the things that he has. That's my desire over my child. I really am honored to have my son. He comes in the morning with me when we're setting up, and he's all day, I want to go to kids ministry. I want to go to kids ministry. I want to go to kids ministry. And yeah, it could be a little like, oh, dude, chill. But it's also like really encouraging to know that my son wants to be in a place where they teach about the Bible and about Jesus and about love and about God, you know? And so like Laura shared, it was very difficult. My son's mother was not very receiving. She was really hurt by the situation between her and myself, and it was very hard for her to adapt and connect. And in that same manner, it was very hard for me to see that she was trying. And that was where the disconnect happened. It was like she really wanted, and I wasn't trying to understand that. It was more like throw the wall up and shut it all down, where I could have been a little more like, hey, this is why I'm doing this. It's not right. We can't be together. This isn't the case. And we had a lot of pressure from my previous church to get married because of having a child. And it was a tough situation. It was really hard. I remember, just to briefly wrap this up, but I remember going to you mentioned the hell camps before. Now I'm about to. You guys are amazing. But I remember going to their group and crying, just literally crying over going to court cases over my son and not knowing how things were going to be. I was in their house bawling. Like, I need to do this, I need to do that. And it was all God. God needed to do it, and he has, and it's been so amazing. So for those of you who are now in a blended family, or in the future you may happen to be in one, do not be so shut off and don't cut things out, because you got to be loving and you got to be understanding, and you got to have understanding. And just to encourage you guys, it is difficult. It is really challenging, but it is possible.
That's good. And, Erica, you and Damien have 2 kids and have been married for a while now. And so I think for some people, I think the mentality is once you have kids and you have a family, especially having multiple kids, you move somewhere else, you get out of the city. That's like everybody's plan. And but what I would, one of the things that I love about and admire about you guys as a family is you guys just kind of bring them along for the journey, and so I think that's been really cool to see. But I would love to hear, I think it's easy for us to talk about the bad things about having kids in the city. And but I would love it if you would share what's been your favorite part about having, Evie and Rafferty and having your family in a city like New York and raising your kids in a city like New York.
Well, first I want to say, if God called you to be here and raise your family, he is going to give you grace through that. New York is tough. It can be challenging at times. But, ultimately, I think my most favorite part is the diversity that my kids are being exposed to. Damien and I both grew up in kind of rural, homogeneous places. And so for them, they're exposed to so many different cultures. And it's not ever going to be, it's always going to be the norm for them. And I think that's so important. And also, there's just so much opportunity for them too here.
That's cool.
I just think it's an amazing place to raise your kid. I will say you need to invest in a lightweight stroller, because there are subway elevators are limited. But
and if you could give one piece, or if looking back, now that you have Evie and Rafferty, if there was one piece of advice that you wish somebody would have given to you when it comes to parenting and raising kids, and even considering the dynamic of being in a city like New York, what do you wish somebody would have told you? Especially that would be encouraging for couples in the room who want to have kids, couples in the room that do have kids right now and are trying to figure it out. What would be that one piece of advice?
I would say it took Damien and I a while to figure out, but I would say my one piece of advice is you need community. You need a solid support system here to excel and to thrive in raising your children here. And Damien and I, we didn't have family. We don't have any family here. So our close friends, they became our family. You don't have to be blood. And also, probably in your neighborhood, there are so many different ways to connect with other parents that are in the same phase as you. There's, Bacoka parents, Park Slope parents, and it's such a great resource to meet other people. But I think to really, live well here, you need people to come beside you. And that's why, we bring our kids here to serve with us. And it's great for them because, one, they see us serving, and we hope that they will develop a servant heart, but also they're surrounded by an amazing community of people. And, we mentioned this in team meeting last week, but Rafferty, he's 8. He loves, Rob and JR and Luke Hellcamp. The Hellcamps are getting all the praise today, but he loves them. And what amazing mentors, these men are for him. He's going to see them, and hopefully he sees Christ, he sees Christ in them, and that's, who he's going to model hopefully later in life. So.
That's awesome. You can get that mic to Rob. We're going to take a turn. We're going to take a sharp turn. And, I think we're going to talk about, Thomas and Laura touched on a little bit. We're going to talk about dating for a little bit. And I think in our church, we've been really good about, and there's nothing wrong with this, I think we've been really good about hearing the female's perspective of being single and navigating dating, with faith and all these things. And so we were super intentional in making sure that we had a single guy this time around, so you kind of get the guy's perspective on it. And I think, for me, I want to take a moment to speak to just all the single people in the room, and just talk about a couple of dynamics before I throw it to Rob and ask him a couple questions. But if you're a single guy in the room, ask a girl out on a date. And here's what I mean. Don't ask her to hang out. Okay? But here's why I say that. Whether you are intentionally doing it or unintentionally, whether it's your intent, you're causing the person that you're asking out, you're causing her to settle for something less. And if you're a female in the room, if you're a single female in the room, and a guy asks you, hey, you want to hang out? I would say for you to say no. And here's why. Part of it is unintentionally, and I don't think guys do it intentionally, but there's no clarity. Like, do you want to hang out with me, or are you trying to take me out on a date? Because those are two different things. And so if you're a female and you say yes to that, and you may be interested romantically in this guy, he may be hot, whatever they say, and but you're kind of settling for something less than what you're really worth. And so if you're a single guy, ask a girl out on a date. Say, hey, I would love to take you on a date to this place. Or I would love to do this, and it is going to be a date. I'm serious. It's those little things that make a world of a difference for people. And so don't we don't need to play games, okay? And can I speak to, I want to speak to the single ladies in the room. Can I ask you to, if a guy asks you out, I'm being serious, but if a guy asks you out on a date, can you not just go with your gut? And what I mean by that is oftentimes we have a list of things that we desire in a person. And there's nothing wrong with that list. But my question would be, are you becoming the person that you want to marry? Because if you aren't, then you need to throw away that list. And maybe the list that you need to have is, who do you want to become for your significant other? And so oftentimes we go, both men and women, we go with our gut and say, oh, I don't want to go out with that person because that's not my type. When your type is simply based on things that you want, not what you even need. And so can I just ask, if you're a guy and you're like interested in a girl, ask her out on a date. And if you're a girl, don't go with your gut reaction. And if you need some time, tell the person, hey, can I actually think about it for a day? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And part of it is, when it comes to dating in church, we've made it very weird and awkward, right? Everybody's like, oh my gosh. And look, and here's the thing, I've probably contributed to that. I'll be the first one to admit it. I'm not ashamed. Because look, here's the thing. When I hear two people going out on a date, I get hyped, okay? Because look, my wife will tell you I'm a romantic at heart, so I love it. And I get hyped and I get like butterflies. It's like I'm about to go on the date and I'm not even going on the date. And so here's the thing. I want to apologize if I've made you feel uncomfortable. Just know that I'm just excited for you. But can I ask us as a community that whenever we hear two people going on a date, can we not make it weird? Can we not gossip about it? Can we not make it a bigger deal than it needs to be? But can we actually encourage them? Can we come alongside of them and say, hey, how did the date go? And say that if it didn't go well, hey, do you need help navigating that conversation? Can I not just talk behind your back, but actually help you navigate it so that we can start to date well in church? And so I just think that we've made it weird. And that's with a lot of things when it comes to Christianity. It's us making it weird, not the people who don't believe, right? And but Rob, sorry, there was no perfect way to transition. By the way, Rob is single.
Transition.
For all the single ladies in the room, he has a great job.
He works at LinkedIn, killing the game at LinkedIn, so he can help you with your profile as well.
I did not sign up for this.
And but what I would love to hear, because the negative stigma or the awkward stigma around dating in church that I just spoke to, I think it actually probably keeps guys in church from asking girls out, because they're like, oh, people gonna make a big deal because if you ask a girl out on a date in church, that means you're gonna get married. Can we get rid of that, please? As a single guy in our church, also an elder, which probably adds a different layer to it, sorry. I think you've actually navigated it really well. And so I think that how would you, to all the single people in the room, how would you speak to like this whole dating and faith and dating people in church? What would you say to them?
So, yeah, it's weird in church. But I think first off, there's always going to be like an inherent or nominal level of weirdness and awkwardness because you're dealing with things that are like very close to who you are and your heart. So there's never going to be like a cool, suave, put the cigarette out and, well, no one's hopefully smoking, but I'm not advocating smoking. You know what I'm saying? Like this cool sort of like, yeah, I mean, it's going to be weird. You're going to say weird things. You're going to be not yourself all the time because it's very hard to be trying to open yourself up in that way and be yourself without getting in your own head. So right off the bat, don't feel bad about like awkwardness, but as far as like in the best way possible, like alleviating that and mitigating that within church culture, I think like if we just find a way to like just normalize the talk, like it's a part of life. Everyone's been through it. Some people are going through it, or some people will be going through it. So I think if you just start to treat it like, oh yeah, just because two people are going out doesn't mean that they're gonna like get married. And it's like, oh man, that's date 5. They're having babies. And it's like, well, I mean, not necessarily, and everyone's relationship kind of looks different in that development, but I've been in like church culture where it's just like, man, if you ask someone out, you better know that it's like the thing, and especially if it goes past a certain extent, and that kind of puts like undue pressure on a situation that is already like very fragile, especially in the beginning. So I would say like, if you're kind of an acquaintance, cool, but like just treat it like an everyday occurrence of life. Like you wouldn't come up to someone and be like, ooh, I heard you have like a second round interview. Oh my God. And it's like, no, it's like, oh man, I heard like this and this is going on. That's cool, man. I wish you the best. That's awesome. And it's like, great. So right off the bat, it cuts out the weirdness because by everyone else kind of being weird, then you're already in your own head a little bit and you're like, oh my God, am I, so I think that, and
Sorry,
it took a
sorry,
lot of...
Rob, because I've done that. I'm sorry.
You're forgiven. You're forgiven. Let me just make sure I didn't forget about anything. Yeah, I think it's just being more commonplace, and I think that's something that I've had to learn too. Is just like not getting in your own head and like analysis paralysis, where it's just like be open to different types of situations and people. And another thing is have people in your life that you have invited and welcomed, whether you're even asking for it in the moment or not, to kind of be awkward with you and just ask you like, yo, how are things going? Like, what's going on here? I think that's absolutely vital because left to our own devices with emotions, we can get weird. Like we can create like bizarre narratives and like all these things going on where it's just like you have someone else to like really be like a fresh breath of fresh air to sort of like really give you like the reality check or like this is what I'm seeing, this is what I've noticed. So yeah, I would definitely say don't date in isolation, and at the very least have people. If you're trying to date in isolation, be like, no, hold up, like you guys have been doing this, like what's going on? And it's totally annoying sometimes, but like I so love that and I so need that.
That's really good. As a single guy, what is one piece of advice, just maybe even based on your own experience of, navigating dating in church, out of church, around church, whatever you want to call it. What's one piece of advice, like, man, like, I wish somebody would have told me this. What's one piece of advice you would leave with all the single people in the room?
I think I'm going to ramble, so it's going to be more than one piece. But I think, so for me, I was taking everything like very seriously. Not that you're not supposed to, but it's more like just be open. Let's normalize it, just like you did almost like pre-Christ. Like it doesn't mean if something doesn't work out that you actually failed. If nothing else, like you were successful in understanding that, oh cool, this is just not it. And hopefully if it's done within community, then there is a level of like honor and respect. And if like you did screw up or like things didn't go well, then at least there's still like that forum to talk, and there's an increased safety there. But I would also say just like, yeah, again, like you're not failing. And also like God's timing is perfect. So if nothing else, learn how to be the best son and daughter that you can be. Yeah. So then you can be like that much of a better like boyfriend, girlfriend. I mean, even beyond this, like for me to be a better brother, like know who you are. So you're not kind of clinging and looking from other people what like you should already be getting. Or even like knowing yourself more. Like that's definitely been something like for me where it's just like, you know, figuring out like what's really in your heart and like connecting with that, inviting God into that to really touch on some of those areas within your heart that aren't healthy, that might actually be huge stumbling blocks when you actually are in a relationship, whether it's your ability to communicate, really like figure out what you want, etc. So I would definitely say, so that's a number of things, hopefully that's clear. Don't make that big of a deal out of it. You're just seeing what a person's like and seeing how you guys come together. As long as that's done within respect and honor, and you have people who will speak into your life to tell you if you're acting a fool, then that's really huge. Or if someone's just like, no, what are you doing? This is great. Like, you know, keep going. So close friends speaking into your life, and just go for it.
I like the thing that he said there, and then we'll bring this to an end. The last thing that Rob said there was, it's not just about having people to tell you, you know, what are you doing, but it's also the other way of like, hey, you're an idiot. This is amazing. Like, you need to keep pursuing it. Like, I'm going to put him on the spot right now, but one of my good friends, Bobby, me and Bobby have been through everything together. So, but, you know, Bobby and his now fiance, when Bobby was interested in her, the conversation that he was having with Tess and I was like, oh, yeah, but everybody else is, like, telling us that it's not going to work, that it's not a good fit. And we hung out with them one time, and I said, Bobby, you need to marry this girl. And not in a way where I was trying to be overly hyped, because I don't think I wasn't like, you know, like, oh my God, you know? And but I genuinely felt like, and part of the reason I could say that to Bobby is we've done so much life together. I've seen Bobby go through ups and downs, and vice versa. Bobby's seen me go through all sorts of different relationships, and so the reason I said that was like, dude, all those people who were telling y'all that y'all don't fit or this won't work, they're blind. Because it is so easy, it is so seamless between you guys, and I think you should pursue it. Not get married, but pursue it. And now they're about to get married. How amazing is that? But now, the cool thing about that is, obviously Bobby had people speaking into his life telling him one thing, but he also had other people in his life that he probably trusted a little bit more. And so I love that, Rob, it's not just you need people to tell you, hey man, this is red flag. You don't need people to just tell you red flag, but you also need people who are gonna tell you, hey, green light, bro. Yeah. This is amazing. And so I love that you said that at the end. And can we,
can I just chime in real quick? Being once a single guy, listen, fellas, don't be afraid to shoot your shot. You know what I'm saying? Like, women like that. Women want that. They desire that. Don't be afraid to go up to somebody and say, hey, listen, let's grab a burger. Let's grab coffee. Like,
on a date.
On a date. Women like that.
Hey, can we give it up for our panelists? And I love this. I kept shooting my shot because my shot kept getting blocked. And some of you that know me and Tessa's story, I asked her out, and she said no. Actually, I asked her out in a really cute way. Because I'll admit, I'm not the guy who's going to be like, hey, like, you want to go on a date? So Tess had left this coffee thermos in my car. And we kind of lived near each other. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. This is what I need. I need this coffee thermos. I'm gonna wash it. And then, I tried to like slide into her DMs through the coffee thermos. So I put a little note in the thermos, and I said, hey, I think you're, did I say I think you're good looking? No, I'm not that bold. I think I said, hey, I think you're great, and I would love to take you out sometime. And so I slid that note, I know, right? Slid that note in, and then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna put it in their mailbox, because everybody checks the mail, right? You gotta check the mail. So I put it in the mailbox, and I'm thinking, oh, when she comes home and she checks the mail, she'll pull it out, she'll see it. And of course, of all the people that she lived with, Tess never checked the mail. Clearly, nobody in their house checked the mail. So the first day goes by. It's been 24 hours, and we worked together. So we were in meetings all day together, so I saw her every day. And I'm thinking, she's going to have to give me some insight into what she's thinking. She hasn't responded yet. And we're going on, and it's like normal. And I'm like, what is going on? Did she not see it? What is happening? And then 2 days go by. Nothing. And she's acting very normal. She's not acting awkward. And I'm like, what is going on? So after work, I drove by, and I opened the mailbox, and the thermos was still in the mailbox. So I'm like, oh my gosh, she still hasn't seen it. So then finally, one of her roommates picks up the thermos and puts it in the house, and I guess she opened it, and she saw the note before Tess. But she knew it was Tess's thermos, so she didn't think I was asking her out. That would have been really weird. That would have been very strange. But she took the note to Tess and was like, hey, I think JR's, whatever. And so finally, I come back to my desk one day in my office, and Tess had left this note, and I'm sweating. I felt like I was back in middle school when you tell the girl you like her and you check yes or check no, you put the stuff. And I opened it, and I did the flipping it, but then I had a hand over it because I wasn't, trying to see I didn't want to read it if it said no. And she said, this is what she said. She said, I think you're cool, but we should just stay friends. But then everything changed. We started hanging out. I mean, we hung out. We had the same friend group, and we hung out all the time. And I remember being at the gym with my friend, and we were working out, and he said, so what are you going to do now? He said, there's so many other fish in the sea. He actually said that. And I was like, I don't know, man. I know she said no, but that's what I want. And so I said, you know what? I'm gonna just play it cool, Thank you, Rob. So I was like, I'm gonna just play it cool. So, we had hung out, a couple times, with our friend group, and I kind of saw some of those things as dates too, in my head. And anytime I could be around her, I was trying to be around her. And then everything changed when I was leading worship one night for the first time at our young adult ministry, and somebody mentioned to Tess, JR's leading worship tonight for the first time, young adults. It'll be great because all the girls will get to see him, and because that's what Christian people think about. They don't think about, I'm going to church to worship. And then I opened my mouth and I started singing. And the rest is history, guys. The rest is history. And but I kept pursuing her. I didn't stop pursuing her. And look, if a girl tells you no a couple times, maybe that's a no. But if I'm just getting that out there. But if she says, hey, maybe we should just stay friends, I don't believe that's a closed door. I think maybe she just wants to get to know you a little bit more. And that's what I realized with Tess. But what I would love to do before we transition and I turn the service back over to Jonathan and Jessica, and we do a couple more things this morning, is can I just pray for, I want to pray for two groups of people. Well, actually, yeah, two groups of people. First, I would just love to pray for all the single people in the room. So with every eye closed, just so I have an awareness for who I'm praying for,
If you're single and you would say, hey, I want to find that person, I want to start, dating and trying to figure out what that is like. If you would just shoot your hand up really quick and then you can put it back down. And Father, I thank you for your sons and your daughters. And God, I pray more than anything that they wouldn't seek to find their fulfillment in their dating relationships, but they would seek to find their fulfillment first in you. That God, that you would remind them that you've created them perfectly, that they don't need to change who they are for somebody else, that they don't need to change their appearance or how they think or how they speak or what they look like to please somebody or to get somebody to take them on a date, but that you've created them just the way you desired them to be. And so, Father, I pray that as they navigate dating and faith, that you would give them courage, that you would give them strength, that you would give them wisdom, that you would surround them with a community of people that are going to help them pursue it well. And God, I speak to all the single guys in the room. I pray, would you give them the courage and the boldness to shoot their shot, to ask a girl out on a date, and for it to not be weird. And God, I pray that you would give all the single women in the room the courage to not settle for a hangout, but to know that they are worth the date. And we pray all of those things in Jesus' name. And I would love to take a moment to just pray for all the, if you are in a dating relationship or if you're married and if you have a family, I would love to take a moment to just pray for that group of people as well. And so, Father, I thank you for all of the dating relationships that are in the room. I thank you for all of the marriages that are in the room and marriages that may be online. And I thank you for all of the families that are in the room. And Father, I pray more than anything that you would be the center of everything, that you would be at the center of our families, that you would be at the center of our marriages, that you would be at the center of our dating relationships, and that you would be the foundation of it all. We know that we need your wisdom and we need your guidance, especially in the day that we live in, to where our kids are being exposed to everything. That marriage, the statistic is actually against us. And so, Father, we need you more than anything. And so, Father, I pray that from this house would be a culture of strong marriages, a culture of strong families, a culture of strong kids who are changing lives. Would you help us to do that? We love you and we bless you, and it's in Jesus' name we pray. And everybody said, amen.